Welcome everyone, this is the FX Masters program lesson 7. Okay, brand new lesson. In this lesson we're going to continue with the conversation about Maya fields, about Maya goals, and we're going to keep finding applications of those concepts onto the prototyping portion of this course. In particular, today we're going to be talking about this kind of migrations, right? And like you know already, because there's a few lessons already that you're with me. The idea of this prototyping portion is to recycle techniques. It's to adapt the concept that we have. There, some of you might find them basic, but you can see that now they have more and more applications, and it starts to get a bit more interesting. And speed, flexibility for the client, right? That's our motto for this course. So on this one, what I want to talk about is this kind of situation. Right? So for you, this is easy already. You understand it, you see it, the magic is gone. Now you see particles instead of animals, right? Simple. Let's look at it from the beginning. Those are the little guys. And this is for what it says, the narrator says on this portion of the video. This is some sort of, definitely migration that they do every year. And there's thousands of them. They go from one point to the other. But along the way, they're going to encounter predators. And like I said, right, this for you is simple. And you can really already break this down into small portions and small things, the emitters and particles and expressions, and you can recreate this with no issues at all. What I want to do now is just add the complication that they will face right now soon, excuse me, which is a predator. How does this behavior, right, that it seems very linear, and it reminds you, I'm sure, of what we did with the birds at the beginning, flying from one side of the screen to the other. It's pretty much the same, right? So we're going to use that setup and tweak it a little bit to introduce predators into this. They're jumping around, they're being happy, but all of a sudden, once they cross this river, I think they will face some wolves or something, and the behavior of the overall herd changes. And being animals and all, and they seem they have more of a mentality as a group. Than as individuals, and the predator, which is right there, his job is to break down the weak ones and the young ones and the old ones, and and that's the target. And the thing is that if you see the herd right there, if you compare that with the birds, it's pretty much the same. And I cannot rotate this window, but if you were to rotate it in that direction, then you'll have and remove the background and just put sky, then you will have the same kind of bird migration that we had at the first probably time that we talked about prototyping. So it's quite simple. But as soon as you introduce a predator, and the predator will change the behavior, but not the behavior of the entire herd. It's too big. It's only the proximity with the predator that it changes. It's amazing how they get a little bit further away, they almost forget that there's a wolf that's trying to kill someone. That's interesting. So that's what I want to do. That's basically what I want to do with you today. Let me just keep playing this. I'm tempted of uploading this video onto the FTP so you guys have it. If you, because I'm getting the feeling that some of you are not watching this, and I think it's key. It's key for you to see it. So try to locate it. It's a television show, so it should be everywhere. All right, so here comes a guy. Let's see what it will do. Right, so they start running. All of them speed up. Right? But then if you see a big herd, you can see that these guys over here are pretty, I kind of jumped over it, but let me just try to pause it. You see, as they get closer, yes, they start to separate and they continue to run. But then as soon as they get a little bit further from the predator, they kind of stop. Or they continue with their normal behavior, which is interesting, right? So that's what I want to do. we're not going to pinpoint a particular scenario like this, where there's one or two guys and one wolf, because that's something that it will be done with from an animator will do it, and it will be a different approach. What you want to do is crowd behaviors. That's what you want to do, thousands of them, and how how can you get a wide shot from from a helicopter, and see how they behave, right? So that's what we're going to do. So like I said before, we're going to reuse the system from the birds. I could do it from scratch, but I think at this stage it's just a waste of my breath and your time. So let's go and locate it. I don't remember very well which lesson it was, but it could have been lesson 3 field, I think it's lesson 2. All right, let's see. There they are. Okay, so this is what we did for the birds. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to save this scene as something else. Never save your scenes with particles visible, remember? So I'm going to save scene as, and this is going to be my lesson 7, I'm sorry. And let's call this thing predator, just to put something descriptive. Beautiful. All right, cool. With this, I save the time, and this is what I want you to do also, to save time. You already created something, you know how it works, you know why it works, so there's no need to repeat yourself over and over again. Use that time for something new. So, perfect, here I am, and there we go. So these are my birds. They have thickness because they were, in midair and all, but right now they're running on a terrain, so, I'm going to get rid of that thickness, and I have that on my control, I believe. I get my minimum height and my height, right? That's just, the names are a bit weird, but it's because, I'm teaching, I'm doing things on the fly. When you plan things ahead a bit more, then you can do it a bit better. But for now, I'm just going to say I don't want any height. That should put these guys flat on the line. That's what I want. Now, in comparison, the birds with these animals running around, there are a lot more birds in the air. So I don't need that many of these guys. So again, I got my control. I'm going to reduce this. I'm going to show you a cool thing. I always like to show you cool tips as I go around. If let's say that you want this to be the 30%, then you could take this number, grab a calculator, and do that, and then input the number. Or you can do this. You can select the value in here, and you can say multiply equal, right? And let's say 0.3. And you do that. It's almost like a little calculator in there. So I think that's a cool tip. That's 30%. So it saves you time. That's the whole point of it, right? Saving time. So that's the 30% of the birds, or in this case, let's stop calling them birds and call them animals, let's say, or whatever. I don't know what they were. I need to hear the guy. I don't want to make a mistake and call them whatever they're not. So I know they're an animal for sure. So there they are, my new guys. They're quite a lot. They remain, we have the same behavior. They're all kind of going with different speeds, right? Little speed variation. They're kind of going from one side of the screen to the other, which is fine. That's what they were doing right at the beginning. Now, let's introduce some predators. So I'm going to put them in a separate emitter. So I'm going to grab my effects menu, as always. I'm going to create an emitter. It could be anything you like. It's up to you. Things to decide here, as always, right? This is a new effect, a new prototype, let's call it. So my client will change. As far as anything from this side, we're covered with this little locator. From the introduction of the predators, what he can change the same thing. He can change the amount of predators. He can change, for example, how scary they are, or meaning how close they need to be to a point or an agent from this side to scare it away. How erratic the motion of the predator will be. For what I can think right now, maybe just that. Hopefully, when you're doing these things at home, then you come up with new possibilities of things that your client can change, or maybe something that happened to you already. Share that with your mates on the group. I think it's a good idea. So far you guys have been really cool. You've been talking to each other. You're starting to share your test and all. I've seen some constructive comments, which is always good. But challenge each other. I would love to see that. I would love to be the judge of one of those discussions, right? What else can you add? What have you added? Give your mates challenges. Give your mates assignments. Why not? We're here to learn. So all of us. So I think it's a good idea. So for now, this is what I can think of. I'm not going to. I'm just for the sake of doing things a little bit different. I'm just going to create a volume emitter. That's all. Instead of using a surface. But you could use even the same surface if you want. But for now, I think for me, I'm just going to make a volume emitter. That's all I need. Create, and I'm gonna place. These guys were doing their thing, just walking around, and then this predator showed up from the back. This is my mouse being stupid. 1 second. Let me use the other mouse. All right. Cool. So here's my emitter for my predators. I'm just going to place it. I think it's a good moment for doing a little bit of housekeeping. So let's say here we're just going to put animals. Well, there are animals, but I'm just going to differentiate them from animals. And these guys are going to be the predators. This is my predator emitter. And this, my animal emitter. We'll leave it as it is. This, you could even group things together if you wanted. So you know that this forces and this control, okay, they are all for your animal system. So you can separate them from whatever forces, just in case, with this predator. So you can just grab this too. Sorry. All right, cool. It's not a bad idea to save. And then I'm gonna play this back to see a bit of the thickness of these guys compared with the thickness of the emitter that I'm gonna be using. Sorry. Okay, 1 frame. This is good. And I'm going to scale this thing so they kind of spread evenly. Let's say they're gonna be born somewhere around there. As far as the height goes, I think it's okay. It doesn't really matter. All right. Well, probably let's just reduce this a little bit. But I'm going to show you a couple tricks right now. Because you will think, well, if you make this volume so big, then you're going to have wolves, let's say, or predators that are underground or whatever. And yeah, you're right. But I will show you, I'm doing this on purpose to show you a little trick. So that's cool. Let's say now that I have my predators, I'm going to limit myself with a max count of, let's say, there were not many wolves, let's say 5. So I can spot them quickly. I'm going to make them, instead of points, I'm going to make them spheres. And here are my guys. So now I can do this, and that's all we got. Great. Don't worry, we're starting now. All right, so I want them to go and chase these guys. I want them to move in that direction. So I could, if you could grab this field, you can connect them to this field, but I want them to have their own speed, separate thing from the other ones. So I'm just gonna use a different field. So I'm just gonna grab it. I'm gonna set a uniform field. Remember, if you don't remember why, I think it's a good idea to go back to lesson 2. But it has to do with the mass of the particle and the randomization of the speed of each one of these guys. Uniform field, no attenuation. Let's just make them fly first just to see what it does. And they went the other way. No worries, we'll take the direction, set it to -1. And now they're jets fighting little animals. Perfect. Cool. Okay. I also want to give them some sort of a... I mean, if they're chasing those little guys, they're going to be turning to the left, turning to the right. You know, I want them to move, not in a straight line. I want them to have some sort of turbulence. That's the key. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to create a turbulence field. You've seen me make this so many times that it's not even fun anymore. All right. Okay, I'm going to amplify this, and I think it's enough of this super strong uniform field. I'm going to put that to 2. Okay, you've seen this before. Let's put that to 5. And then they go the crazy ones, okay? But yeah, they're not walls, they're like, what, planes or something? But we're getting there. Cool. They're working. So, now the thing I wanted to talk to you about was, you know, the little trick that I said is, why am I not worried? Why am I not planning ahead of this thing? Why are these guys just flying and I don't really care? It's because I want to use a little expression, and I'm going to cancel the influence of the field on these particles in the y-axis, the height, with one expression. So I'm going to make sure that this field is almost like this, the turbulence field, almost as if I were canceling the y channel. So yeah, that's something we can do. And it's very simple as well. I know I said that everything is simple, but you know, you cannot agree. You have to agree with me that, you know, so far it's been fine. Later will be more pain. All right. So if I want to do that, I want to mess with the velocity of the particle, and it's all I want to do is just tell the velocity in y to be 0. I don't want them to move up or down. That's it. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to do just first a creation expression, but I have to do them in both creation and runtime, right? Because we're going to be messing with the velocity, which changes every frame. So the particle shape velocity when they're born, okay, I'm going to say that is equal. And equal to what? I need to be careful with this, but and I'm going to do this expression. It's very simple, but I'm going to do this just the way that you would do it. And if the mistakes come through, then great. Then we'll fix them together. So basically what you want to say is that the velocity of the particle in y is 0. If you say the velocity is 0, then the particles won't move. That's not really what you want. You don't want them to move up or down. So you need to leave your velocity as it is in x and z. And whatever is in y, then you can just override it with a 0 or multiply by 0 and you'll be fine. Okay. So how do I do that? Velocity is a vector. It's a vector that carries velocities in x, y, and z. So by that we need to take that into consideration and work with a vector. When you work with vectors on expressions, they always go inside these little guys. And when you finish, you close it like this. Okay? So if you want to mess with the velocity in one channel, first of all, you need to break down the channel. You need to have a variable that it will ask the particle what the velocity is. So for example, if you want to, this is the first time we're doing it. I'm getting into mel scripting right away with you guys because I know that you are watching the FX Power user. I know for a fact because I'm reading your comments on the group, and I know that you know you're taking both, let's say both courses. So one is a little bit more slow pace, and this one is a bit fast. So jump into expressions right away. So basically, what I do want is a variable that, if you know, you just put the $sign, and we're gonna call this val. Okay. But you need to specify what type of variable is going to be. And because I'm going to be asking the velocity, so I want to say this variable is going to be equal to velocity. But just like this, okay, it doesn't really work. You need to tell what kind of variable this guy it is. And because it's expecting this, which is a vector, then you have to say vector $vel is equal the velocity. Velocity of what? The velocity of the particles. Remember, we're selected here. I could grab this and put it there. That's the same thing. Okay, so vector.vel is equal to that. I can just, for the sake of testing, I'm going to cut this out and hit create. And you can see that there's no errors down here. So now the particles have a variable, not an attribute, a variable that gets overwritten, right, every frame, that carries the velocity when they're born in this particular case. Great. So what I want to do now is say that the velocity of this particle, okay, is going to be equal to whatever this variable, okay, has on x, meaning that whatever, if the velocity in x is 3, then it's the same thing. I'm not messing with that number. The next one is going to be y. So you could type $vel.y, right, for leaving everything as it is, and $vel.z. Basically, what you're doing here is making a stupid comment. You're saying, okay, this variable has the velocity, and the velocity is what the variable says. Okay, great. So what? But what happens if you replace this with 0? Hit edit, no mistakes. I wish I could make a mistake just for fun, but it's very simple. Like I said, there's nothing special here. So that's on creation. I'm going to copy this, paste it on runtime, and now I have this evaluation, okay, done on every frame. So, sorry, let me hit rewind, let me hit play, and what do you know? They have turbulence. Now you can go crazy with the turbulence, and they're not going to be shooting themselves up in Y, and that's a guarantee. The only reason they have a variable, very height is because they're born off a volume. That's it. So if you don't want that, you can just always reduce this. They will still be born closer, in Y together. But I think it's good for the nature of this effect just to have this kind of variance in here. You can always compensate that with a little bit of this. Let's say this will be negative 0.1, and the max height will be 0.1. Then you have thickness in here plus whatever this guy will do. You see the importance of recycling your testing, your setups. You see how important, to me, this prototyping section of this course is very important, so important, because this is what's going to help you get, and let's be honest, man, you're paying for this course because you want to get a job, because you want to make money, right? And you want to be better than the guy sitting next to you. There's nothing wrong with competition, and I always find it that way. But this kind of stuff, man, this is the kind of stuff that's going to separate you from that group, that is going to put you ahead, that is going to make you, make other people say, well, how come this guy got an effect 20 minutes ago, and god damn it, he already has something working. I love seeing the faces of my colleagues doing that. I love it. So work efficient, okay? And with a couple of little lines, and you don't need to, other people will go over complicated with, I don't know who. I've seen people even do collisions for this kind of stuff, and that's ridiculous. So anyway, my point with that is that it does work. Now you can go ahead and, increase the value of your turbulence field if you need to. Okay. Okay, that's great. Perfect. I mean, it could be too much, but remember that we also have to switch the conserve down to 0.99. There you go, 0.98. And you can use this conserve to make them a little bit sluggish or something, your predators. So, all right, there they go. They're still running way too fast. Remember the scale of this thing. I mean, I'm using spheres just remember to show you what it is, but it doesn't mean that these guys are that big, or these guys, are ants or something. No, they're supposed to be animals way for the distance. So I really want these guys to move a lot slower. Like I said, you could use you can play with the conserve in this case. We haven't really done anything other than 9.98, but if you do, for example, 0.5, then you will see very big differences. You see? Now things are getting into scale. At this speed, this guy would never be caught. You could continue to walk or run, and then who cares? But you see my point? 0.9, just by switching, I'm sorry, the conserve attribute. Let's just be more realistic, put something like 0.9. Instead of switching your forces, let's say that you're happy with the balance of your turbulence against your uniform field and all. So that's fine. You can just use the conserve to help a little. And it's very sensitive. You see, 0.9 is already making a big difference. Sorry, what am I doing? 0.05. I'm sorry, it's 0.95. No wonder. All right. Okay, there they go. At the moment, they're ghosts. There's no fear from these guys because they don't really exist. There's no relationship between them. For all they care right now, they're members of the same herd. They're just crazy and they run around like nuts. But that's going to change in a second. I'm going to save what I have. Always good to do. And how do I scare these guys with those guys? Okay, there is one field that is very useful for these kind of situations. What I mean by situations, when you're not going to be doing this effect many times in your career, you probably just a handful. But you will find yourself doing similar kind of particle behavior on every show that you work on, using particles to attract or repel other particles. That is more common, right? Remember my motto, I teach you tools for you to adapt and turn into many different effects. So in this case, we are talking about animals being scared by other animals, but this could be anything. All right, so it's a good way also to like fake collisions or interparticle collisions in a cheap way. This is very cheap, very quick. So it is useful for a lot of stuff. So what I want to do is this. You select the particles that are going to be scared, let's say, or pushed, and you're going to be using a radial field. So if I push a radial field just as it is, the radial field is at the center, it has attenuation, and all it's going to do is just push the guys right in the center away. It's very strong. I can hear your brains working and thinking of explosions and rings of expansion or whatever super cool effects, and yeah, it's true. There you go. But in this case, we're doing something a lot more natural. I don't really care for a field, in this case, that is like that. What I do want is to have the ability of assigning this field to each one of the predators that I have right here. That's what I want. So I want that to change. I want this field, this force, to be executed from each one of these guys. And no, you cannot, or that's not the right thing. If you're thinking of that, of making multiples of this and then constrain them to the particle with an expression, it could be done, but it's not really the right way to do it. Because your client, because you know him so well, he's going to change the number of predators 20 times on you. So that's not going to work for you. You want to do this automatically. And there is a very simple way. I can always say, very simple, very simple. It is simple. Okay, so I'm not going to care for these guys at the moment. All I care is for my radial field. I'm going to grab my predators, and I'm going to go into fields, and I'm going to select use selected as source. Very cool stuff to do here. Very cool. You're going to use it a lot. Keep an eye on my outliner. What's going to happen? Bam. You can see that it parented, literally parented the field under the particles, but it did more than that. Now each predator became a field. And you can see that one little guy, how strong of an effect it will have. So right now, imagine multiply by 5. We need to tone that down a lot. But hey, for the hell, why not? Let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, look how cool. I want to show you because this will work for other things. Many other effects. Look how interesting this is looking. So these guys are big force on those guys. destruction, like I said, expansion, superpowers for heroes or magic. You know, that's usually how it begins with this kind of techniques like this. Like I always say, it's like I'll tell you there's no Santa Claus. I'm teaching you how to do the things you see on screen and you value so much, and then all of a sudden, then the magic is gone. But if you want to work in this, that's the way it is. I go to the movies every day, every single day, pretty much. Right now, as soon as I finish this lesson, I'm out. Um, I still enjoy it. Why not? My brain, I like to keep it working and thinking and working. And I'm sure you're the same. Well, most of you are like that. So don't lose that. Back to the topic. That's not going to work, of course, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to reduce this influence from these guys into this group. I wanted for them to be really close before they get scared. And it's, again, like I said, it's simple. You can grab the radio field, and remember, you have a max distance that right now is set to 20. So there's 20 units away from them. There's still force being influenced on these guys. Try something like 2, for example. Okay, let's see. Getting closer. Look at that guy. He's getting closer, but I don't see much happening. Let's see. Is he even scared? Let's see these guys. Because these two are just having another idea of their own. This is interesting. This guy who's not a particle is the field, is the one that is affected. And that's true. That's perfect. Because what you were seeing before, that big ring, it wasn't them. It's this guy. Because right now, even though each one of these particles carries a field, you can see that it has a particle, it moves like a particle, the field itself. Look at it. It seems like it has turbulence. It is carrying these guys, but these guys are not doing anything. So what's going on? Well, basically what's happening is that the field, it is applied to each one of them, but not until you tell it to, it's not going to be used individually. Right now, this position could be an average of the position of all these particles. So it places itself in the center of everything. And that's not what you want. So you have to change one more thing. So grab the field and make sure that you hit apply per vertex. That will make now each one of them a force field. Your scene will slow down a little bit, but that's fine. Just in case. Okay, let's keep an eye on our guys. They're approaching, they're approaching, they're approaching. Oh, look at it, look at that one. It is scary now. It is scary, and it's very scary because, it's really, pushing them. They're not going to get even close to him. This guy, you can see that he entered the group and is not doing anything. That's just a representation of the field at the moment. All these guys are doing something, but they don't really want to attack. This is a dynamic thing. You can control how fast they will move. This guy entered the group and he's going nuts. Look how he disturbed the group. Look, he's scaring at the edges. Yes. These are scared, but they don't want to come in. All right, it works. If you want them to come closer, and break into the group is not a problem. We just go into our turbulence and lower that down. And you can probably increase the uniform field quite a bit, and you will have a different approach that will just run through the group. So let's see. You see, they're rushing through. Tell me you're not thinking of a boat or a jet ski pushing foam on top of a water or snow or many things, right? All right, that's what I hope. So here they go. So how do I control how scary they are, right? And what happens to these guys? Because these guys at the moment, they get pushed away, they stay there because that's the behavior of the birds. We didn't want anything too drastic. So these guys might need a little help as well. From what? From a turbulence field. Just a little bit. Just so you don't forget, Let's make expressions in here. Jesus, with this mouse, man. All right. And this will be time, let's say, multiply by whatever. Anything you like. Copy that. Technically, the phase inside shouldn't matter because the motion. Oh, we need to do that as well now. We'll talk about that in a minute. So let me just. Okay. Cool. Perfect. Oh, I made a mistake. I have 2 commas in here. Oh no, 1 second. What did I do? Okay, of course. It's points. I had commas in. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to have an issue. Well, we have an issue. That's great. That's what I wanted to talk about. You see the animals? Somehow they grew wings and now they fly. That's not really cool. That's not what we want. Unless you're scaring birds. Unless these guys are dogs chasing birds. And hey, it's worth mentioning that, okay, for your bank of ideas and for the future. But these are not birds. In this case, they're animals. They have to stay on the ground. We're going to do that in a minute. Especially now that we put turbulence in there. So now they're being attacked by turbulence. They're being attacked by the guys. This is a bloodbath. But I have a problem. I don't want them to move up in Y, just like these guys right here. So let's do it again. It's a good practice, good way for you to practice. Go into the creation expression for your particles now. We have a mass randomizer here, which is perfectly fine, but we're going to mess with the velocity right now. So remember what we did. We're going to say $val for velocity. Doesn't really matter if you use the same variable because that's on a per particle basis. But if you want to be, safe, then you can just do this. Right? That's going to be equal to, to velocity. And then you can say velocity is equal, to $velocity.x, 0 so they don't fly away, and $velocity.z. You see how fast you can do it. Once you start to get to practice, this is nothing, man, for you. Copy this, drop it in there, done, man. And we can rewind and play for fun. You can see a creation expression in action. You will see where all of them are, and then they won't get any higher. They won't go to the center because they were born, and you're not telling them to reset their position of the velocity in V. You're basically telling that not to have any more velocity in V. But hey, it's another way for me to give you more ideas, right? If you want to have something like that with this kind of distribution and then stay there but move sideways, then this is the way to go. You execute this expression on a particular frame. So if you want to see them get stuck to the ground, back to the ground, there they are. So they do have turbulence helping them, just like it helps the predators. Let me just close here. Sometimes I don't get it. Okay. All right. Obviously, the turbulence is too strong, right? But I think we're fine here. You can see that it's working, but I'm going to reduce the turbulence. I'm going to reduce the frequency a little bit and the magnitude as well. Okay, so we solved the problem of, I'm going to have to do the double turbulence. It's too strong. I'm going to grab it to 1. I'm going to make a new one. Okay, and I'm gonna use these expressions. You know, you can try something just to try something new. You can grab these expressions and paste them there, and just change the number. It's not like the particles where you have to be on the particle shape. You could say something like this, and now you see turbulence 3 has expressions. Why would you do something like that? Well, in case you wanted to tweak all the expressions in one place, you could do that. Because right now, you know, if you get it, you have for both fields at once. So this can save you time. If you think, well, I need to tweak both of the faces at once, you know, it saves you a little bit of time. There's nothing crazy. Sorry, it's like that. Just to change numbers a little so they're not the same. Yeah, it's just a little bit softer. Well, still, these guys are flying through, right? That's not what we want. But let's say that if because they're moving so quickly, you want to be able to scare them earlier. Well, do you remember that if you grab the field now, then you can play. You could even play with attenuation. This has attenuation. I think it's necessary because you don't want them to be hitting a wall. You just want them to get scared as it gets closer. So I will leave that as it is. But at home, you can test if you want. But the max distance, you can increase it. So now 5 units away from the victim, let's say, they're going to get, they're going to find out that they're being chased and they're going to start running. Okay, too strong, but it does the trick. See? Interesting. Obviously, too strong. But it does work. Max distance, you can put that back to 2. You can increase that. I think that even the strength is fine because they're pushing quite strongly. There they go. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the speed which they move. So I'm going to grab my predator system, and I need to make sure that I know that this turbulence belongs to these guys, these two belongs to those guys, and this uniform field belongs to my predators. That way you don't mix things around. So this is the speed where they're going to move. So put that back to 2. You can give these guys a hand. I'm putting them way too far, but they got to work for their food. Okay, so that works. So tweak things a little bit to make sure that, you see what else can you add to this. What other effect? This turbulence on the birds are still too strong. Amazing how strong they are. 0.1 and let's say 0.2. And just like the radio field is being carried by these guys, they can carry other fields around. So they could be sources of turbulences and things like that. So experiment a little. So as far as assignment goes, you know what it is. Just do this, add your own touch, add your own attributes, see what else can you come up with, another idea. Start to look very interesting. As far as turning this into another system, you choose what you want. You can just keep. Where's my locator? There you go. You could keep the master control outside and use this as a new. I mean, as you can keep everything here. Just the word swarm and all. Well, it's up to you. You can change that as well. Probably you can just go modify, edit attribute. So you can change the name. So instead of being swarm, you can just say whatever, group or victim. Sounds cooler. Okay. So victim, gap frequency. So all of this you can change. And I can see that it's reorganizing things, so that's a good opportunity for you to probably, if you have things out of order, then by all means. I'm not gonna care about that because I don't wanna waste too much time renaming stuff. To me that's so boring to watch. Just showing you that it's very fast. Changing the name of the attribute, it will update on any expressions that you have. It should. You can always double check that. You can grab your expressions. Okay, so now it says animal shape, master control, victim. Okay, so that's fine. So update is a victim. Speed variation is a new name of the attribute. So it updated itself. So that way you can just have one control and just add more stuff to it. So right now here we can go and modify, add attribute as usual. We're gonna name this then predator number or predator count. It's gonna be a float, remember, keep an eye on this. Just a simple number. The number of predators minimum can be 0, no maximum, and the default, let's say 5. I want to sneeze for a while. It goes away every time. All right, so add perfect predator count. We said that we also wanted to try the predator speed. Let's say predator for let's just say speed, right? That's just usually predator speed. Is another float. Minimum 0, no maximum, and I think we're using 2 for our field. We also wanted to say predator turbulence. Also 0, I don't remember, but let's say, sorry, no maximum. And a default of 3. Hit add. So that number of predators, forward motion, turbulence, also, let's say, scare factor or something cool. That's going to be the magnitude of the field. Okay, so we can put scare factor magnitude. It could be no scare at all. And I think we're using 5 probably. And you can also say scare distance. That could be 0. And I think we're using 2 as a default. So I think for now we're fine with this. Let's do some connections very quickly. So grab my control, window, general connections, and let's go one at a time. So now we're talking about predator count. We know what it is already. We've done this many times before. Predator shape, reloaded, and we're going to look for max count. I don't have the shape node selected, so keep an eye on that, right? So predator, you can select it from here if you want. Reloaded, now it's correct. So now we can locate our max count. Okay, so predator count to max count. Predator speed has to do with the field. So you see why it's a good idea to group everything or rename things at least. So predator speed goes to the magnitude of the uniform field. Predator turbulence goes to the magnitude of this. Scare factor magnitude, it has to do with the magnitude of the radial field. And the last one is scare distance. It has to do with the max distance of this. Done. Didn't take more than 3 minutes. Let's test it. Here they go. Run for your life. It works. Excellent. It has nothing to do with the fact there's spheres, okay? They're just, it could be misleading as well because the sphere has one size, but they're actually being accounted as points when they're amid the forces. So you need to balance your magnitude with your max distance. okay, to be able to disrupt this thing. If you want the group to come back to normal and all, then the turbulence, you have to play with the turbulence and have them continue to move around. So right now my turbulence on these guys is too low. But that's something that you can just adjust yourself. Okay, I think we're perfectly fine with this one. It was a cool class, nice and short. I think it's good. You know, the assignment, there's nothing for me to put on the FTP. I'm going to try leaving uploading the first episode of the Planet Earth just for fun, if you want to watch it. Well, with that, well, thank you very much. I'll expect some comments and questions on the group as usual. So see you soon. Thank you.